Chad Person uses money in an unexpected way.
What was your impetus to begin working with money?
When I first had the thought, you know, it was kind of, it was just this beautiful sort of combination of ideas that congealed in my mind, and I realized that, you know, as an artist, I invest pretty heavily into my work. And I think like a lot of artists, I always start from kind of a place of personal conflict or observation. So I typically move from body to body of work, you know, with different problems. So this work, you know, was both an opportunity and it was a problem. Effectively, the problem is I, as an individual, feel powerless when I earn money in our capitalist economy, and a large part of it is taken and spent in a way that I ultimately don't control. You know, when I vote for a politician, I can hope they'll do right by me and by my beliefs, but, you know, that typically doesn't go that way. But at the end of the day, of every dollar that I earn, you know, I'm going to lose 30 cents or something to taxes, and about a dime goes to pay interest on old war debt, right? Like, I can't control that. I don't think most people can control that. So with this body of work, I thought, well, here's an opportunity for me to sort of take that back, because, you know, I got smart about it and realized if I destroy the currency, I can write it off. That means ultimately I pay less taxes. And I went through a couple of years right after school where I started making a salary for the first time, and, you know, making a real paycheck, and I was like, wow, now I have all this extra money, you know, what can I do with it? But I was also paying all this extra tax, and so that conflict kind of led me here.
Have you run into any problems legally, or any kind of pushback at the idea of burning money?
Fortunately, to date, no. Nobody's come after me. You know, maybe I haven't had the exposure I need to become a target, or perhaps, you know, I'm just not destroying enough that the federal government thinks it's a problem.
What was it like when you broke the idea? Can you describe a little bit about that moment or that process?
I think I've made 60 or 65 of these pieces. They were very popular, they were very successful in that they communicated back to the viewer. So viewers responded to them, which is great, as did the art market, which is great, because then I sold them, lots of them. You know, they're in you know, collections and museums all over the world. But the problem is, then as the artist, when I look back at what my conceptual impetus is, now, you know, I destroy a few $100s, I make a piece of work, I sell it for a few $1,000s, I end up with more than I destroyed, and I pay tax on that. So, yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, it was great, you know, people really love the work, they were responding to it, but in a way I felt like I was then kind of selling a lie, because the work wasn't conceptually valid at that point. You know, I'd broken the model.
What drives you to continue to create moving forward and into your latest series?
Once I decided that I was kind of done making the tax cut work, I did what I often do, which is I sort of evaluated my station in life and thinking about, you know, what's meaningful to me. And I realized that, you know, particularly in the last handful of years, as I'd become a homeowner and a father and a husband, and really sort of started checking those things off on the American dream, you know, the amount of personal fear and insecurity that I feel has increased, you know, like, and also like the amount of personal freedom that I feel has decreased. I'm on this maiden voyage, like, I don't know what's in front of me, but I'm pretty terrified by it. And it made me recall like really old maps, because I had, you know, a little background more recently in cartography as well. And I was thinking about these, this concept that, you know, old explorers, you know, the explorers who didn't know what was on the other side of the ocean, at one point just believed that there must be evil and monsters over there. And that led me to start producing a series of work, again using money, but significantly more of it, to produce collages that are about monsters. Sometimes, like, you know, I put the sort of human figure, like, with their back, you know, blissfully unaware of the fact that they're about to be snatched out of the water by a gigantic kraken, adrift in the unknown, you know, and try to create like an open ground to kind of talk about that personal fear. Like, it's very much, you know, it's very much about me.
What's important to you about your work?
There's so many things. I'm compelled to say, you know, for the sake of every other creative individual out there, that one of the most important things for me about my work is that I keep making it. Because I think, you know, anybody who produces creatively understands that it's a struggle, but the outcome is this like immeasurable value, which is beauty, you know, which is personal connection, you know, which is inspiration for future creation, you know, like that's so meaningful. These are measurements of human civilization. You know, we always go back through the culture of a civilization to understand who those people are. So for cultural producers like me, I think, you know, that's really meaningful. That's important to me. And then, you know, as sort of a tertiary thing, because some artists don't feel it, but it is also important to me that my work communicates on some level to the viewer. Because, you know, I used to always say before my grandmother died, you know, God rest her soul, she's a wonderful woman, I used to always say I made work for my grandma, because my grandma was this like fantastic, powerful, blue-collar woman who raised her family, you know, with no education, like pulled everybody out of the ghetto in Milwaukee, and basically now we all have degrees and we're all doing very well, and thank God for her, right? But I made work and I would show it to her and she would understand it. And for me that was so important, because, you know, it's really easy to look at, particularly fine art, visual art, you know, it's a niche audience, and it's an audience of like educated upper class people, you know, and collectors and museums and institutions. But I want, you know, I made work for my grandma. I want everybody to be able to take something away from what I'm putting into it. So I guess in that sense, it's just important for me to make connections through my work.